rise and grind.
Authorities are still investigating the motivation behind last night's mysterious bridge attack. Anyone with information is encouraged to contact the Tampa Police Department directly. Please avoid using emergency lines unless absolutely necessary. In other news, flu season is back in full force. Local clinics are reporting a surge in cases, with some patients being hospitalized for severe respiratory symptoms. With more on how to stay healthy this season, here's Tampa's favorite medical expert, Dr. Kendall Parker.
Hey folks, if you're feeling run down or your throat's scratching, don't panic. We live in the best state for fighting this thing off. I'm prescribing you 2 hours of sunshine each day, with 20 minutes of light movement on top. Think jogging, brisk walks, dog walking, that kind of stuff. I don't care, just get moving. Then cool off with a nice cold drink. My personal favorite, Bayou Dew. It's packed with B vitamins and all natural ingredients, fresh from the swamp. The next thing I want you to do... Enough of this garbage. Time to get to work. Escobar wasn't the kind of guy to panic about a flu. Unlike many others, he took his health seriously. Every morning he woke up at 6 a.m., was working out by 6:15, and drinking his protein breakfast smoothie by 7. When he wasn't working on his body, he was training his mind. He was an avid chess player, amateur writer, and indulged in at least 2 different podcasts a day. He wasn't just doing this for him, he was doing it for the ones he loved. If he wasn't the best version of himself, then how could he expect to help anyone else? He had a goal, a grand vision of what he wanted to achieve. There would always be obstacles, and he'd find a way to get over them. But sometimes, big ambitions can lead to big trouble. If you're so focused on what you want, you don't always see what's right in front of you. Waking up at 6 a.m. doesn't help you notice the informant you're selling guns to. Unfortunately for Escobar, well, that's exactly what happened. Lead or silver? Which would you choose? Hey, there he is. Escargot. You bringing some tacos? I'll bring them next time, as long as you bring some pierogies, you fat Polak. Whoa, that's uncalled for. You see, Chavez? I told you he's fatphobic. So what do you got for us today? Took these during the last deal. A couple of new faces, but nothing unusual. Listen, man, this ain't gonna cut it. We need to make progress on this case. Then maybe you should do a better job. Maybe we should pay your mother a visit. That ought to motivate you. I heard Cuba's great this time of year. I should visit yours. That'll motivate me even more. Yo, you wanna go, smartass? Easy, Krosky. He was just busting your balls. Right, Esco? Sure. Yo, Esco, these your new customers? Shit. Nah, they wanna be though. Let's get out of here. I don't think so. When the salt caps came into view, Escobar knew what it was. It was an ambush, and he wasn't about to be caught today. When the bullets started flying, so did he, right down the nearest alley. He wasn't sure who was winning, or who even wanted to win. The only thing that mattered to him in that moment was survival. Shortly after Brett arrived, another caravan rolled in. For such a secret location, the fellas were starting to feel a little too popular. The newcomers were from the Green Sound settlement. They brought many interesting wares, and even a bush-antlered elk. It would have made a fine addition to their zoo, but Escobar had to pass. It was too expensive and too wild. Still, he made a modest trade and struck up a chat with Furr, the caravan leader. They shared small talk, weather, trading, sports teams. Then she asked if he had seen a masked man around these parts. Escobar played it cool. He knew the best lies were fed with a grain of truth. So he admitted to spotting someone who fit her vague description, even mentioned the Panther fight. Of course, he left out the part where the guy was snoring in their shack. That little detail would cost extra. What caught him off guard was her reaction. She wasn't surprised by the fight. It was quite the opposite. She said the man was a dangerous fighter and a severe drug addict. Then she leaned in and dropped her voice so only the two could hear.
We used to work together toward the same goal. His future will change his past.
Escobar asked what that meant, but she didn't elaborate. Instead, she handed him a crude map and circled a distant outpost.
If he shows up again, send him my way.
He agreed, in exchange for the man's name. It was Brett, the same name the stranger gave Floridaman. So the guy wasn't lying about that, but he definitely wasn't some random drifter either. What kind of trouble did they let walk into El Gatorado? Before she left, Furr handed over 100 silver.
For your discretion.
Now all they needed was for Brett to wake up. Instead of socializing, Floridaman was deep in the brush, tracking something. A pair of black-footed ferrets had entered the swamp. Cute and rare little things. They were critically endangered, high black market value. But Floridaman wasn't thinking about money. He was thinking about the optics. If he managed to tame them and release more into the wild, well, everyone would like that. He spent hours trying to get close. Snacks, whistles, even sweet talk. No dice. So he changed his tactics a bit and pulled out his dart gun. It would be a quick, humane capture. But his plan was foiled before it even began. El Chompa had been especially moody since laying her first egg, and her behavior was unpredictable. Apparently today, she was in a hunting mood. By the time Floridaman realized she was following him, it was too late. When the ferrets came into view, the gator bulldozed through the brush like a scaly hurricane. She didn't care about species preservation. The only thing that mattered to her was the emptiness in her stomach. The creatures tried to run, but one of them vanished into a blur of teeth and red mist. Floridaman winced. He wanted to help, but he wasn't about to get between a hungry dinosaur and her meal. He looked around for the other ferret, but it was long gone. He felt bad for failing the cute critters, but there was nothing more he could do. But hey, at least El Chompa was calm again. Later that morning, Aurelia was on her feet and walking around. She and Escobar talked private for a bit, then they shared a long hug and a kiss on the cheek. He smiled and waved at her as she left for the Green Sound settlement. Floridaman was grinning too, but for different reasons. So how'd you do it? The ladies can't resist my cooking, and now we have an ally at Clearbloom. The new guy was pretty tough. Those panther wounds should have kept him down for days, but he was back up and moving in under 24 hours. The Luciferium certainly helped, but so did sheer stubbornness. Brett wasn't the type to sit still. He needed to move, needed to do something. Throughout the day, Escobar and Floridaman took turns prodding for information. They asked seemingly innocent questions and cross-examined them later for consistency. Escobar would ask something like, "Are you a local or a drifter?" And later on, Floridaman would bluntly say, "Where you from?" It was all part of the plan. If Brett was lying, they'd find the cracks. But Brett took the interrogation in stride. He didn't dodge questions and didn't overshare either. He told them he was from Naples, small city, big money. His dad was some rich prick he never met, a man who paid his mother a lump sum to disappear. Some gentleman he was. For years he drifted up Florida's western coast, college in Fort Myers, short-term gigs in Bradenton. Eventually he landed in Tampa, where he found steady work, bouncing at bars and serving drinks. He didn't have much to say about recent events, claimed he had been hiking through Big Bend, looking for a deeper connection with nature. Escobar knew he was lying, just wasn't sure about how much. But instead of calling him out, he listened, studied his body language. Whenever Brett lied, he had a slight tell. He would subtly rub his fingers against his palms. Brett claimed to be alone, said he had no home to return to. It all sounded so convincing and incredibly convenient. Out of all the swampy forests in Florida, he just happened to stumble into their operation? Not likely. He wasn't a Fed, at least they knew that much. So for now, he was allowed to stay. He could keep his secrets, and they'd keep their eyes open. Escobar knew the truth would come out once the Lucy ran low. It was a dirty tactic, but Brett's addiction was his greatest weakness. The next day, an eclipse fell over the land. Brett called it a bad omen. He claimed old spirits still roamed the swamps, stories of ancient gateways and demons. Floridaman shrugged it off, saying it was just folklore the locals spewed to keep kids out of the swamp. Then he argued it was ghouls, not demons, that came through the portals. The whole time, Escobar just wanted to move back to Miami. Somehow, these two made people there seem normal. But the following morning, Brett's uneasiness was validated. A raider from a group called Trash crept into the area. His name was Zane Sparks, a passionate psychopath with skills to match. Thanks to the eclipse, the sun couldn't act as an alarm clock, and both Floridaman and Escobar were fast asleep. But Brett was awake. He went out back to relieve himself, and he spotted Zane making a beeline for the camp. Without hesitation, he shouted a warning to the fellas and ran to intercept. Zane saw the large man charging in and screamed with psychotic glee, but Brett didn't slow down. The two men collided, and he grabbed the raider by the head and rammed his knife into their throat. Zane hit the ground and gestured for mercy. He tried to speak, but only blood came out. Brett watched the gargling man crawl, and then he laughed. He stripped off Zane's clothes. No guns, no wires. I'm not a cop. This was just some punk, and he was gonna die like one. Escobar and Floridaman burst through the door, but what they saw was an execution.
Brett, what are you doing?
The psycho attacked me.
Escobar ran over and tried questioning Zane, but the man spoke only in drowning gasps. A moment later, he was dead. They searched the raiders' clothes and found a blood-soaked letter and a smoke leaf joint. The letter was an order from a trash leader. Zane had been part of a squad sent to deal with the new competition. They were instructed to burn it all down. The base, the fields, the bodies. Apparently, their little operation had drawn quite a lot of attention. El Gatorado was never a secret paradise. They were just a small fish, a thorn in a much larger fish's side. Escobar read the letter twice, then a third time.
2 weeks. That's all it took for everything to go sideways.
Maybe this is all just a misunderstanding. Hell, we don't even know these people.
That guy was crazy. I don't know what his problem was.
They're mocking us, watching our every move.
He snatched the joint from the ground and started cursing in a blend of English and Spanish.
You sure he didn't say nothing to you? Not even a threat?
If he did, I didn't hear it.
Escobar spun and pointed at Brett.
You. All of this started when you showed up.
Hey, asshole. Last I checked, I'm the one who stopped that guy from killing you in your sleep.
He's right, Esco. The timeline doesn't add up. Brett didn't even know about the smoke leaf till today. And they'd be talking about that in that letter.
That's great. Now you're defending him.
I don't need to be defended.
I didn't ask you, did I?
What happened? Corn landing on the Cuban side today? Escobar froze mid-stride. In case you didn't understand, Floridaman asked him if the coin had landed on the Cuban side today. He was referring to a time back at school when Escobar told him that he was like a coin. One side was Cuban, the other side white. The white half was his relentless, salesman side, and the Cuban half was his fiery, passionate side. And every day he woke up, it was like flipping a coin. Too much of one side was a bad thing, but right down the middle, you got the best salesman in all of Tampa. For a moment, it looked as though Escobar was going to shoot them both. Then he burst into a fit of laughter, and the other two contagiously joined him.
Yeah. I knew you liked that. I was really thinking about shooting you.
The laughter died down when Floridaman suddenly pointed at the forest. You see that?
What is it? More raiders?
Nah.
I could have sworn I just saw a naked woman, just in the tree line there.
You sure? You don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah, real funny. The group finished talking about the raider and talked about some potential defenses they could set up in case of another attack. After that, Floridaman returned to the woods, and wouldn't you know it, he found human footprints. So, he followed them. Over an hour later, he spotted the culprit, a wild woman by the shore of some pond, washing her hair and hands in muddy water. He gently approached her, offering blood oranges, and she cautiously accepted the gift. After a while, he learned that her name was Paleologa, a poor soul, long lost in the swamp. He began whispering something about dusters, and then he, tried to aggressively tame her. It didn't work. She walked away, leaving Floridaman standing there with a handful of fruit, like some kind of roadside vendor. He didn't tell the others. He just thought about her. She was vulnerable out there. He had been naked and lost in the swamp more than a few times, and rarely was it a pleasant experience. The next morning, he found her again, this time wandering close to camp. He tried to reach her, but nothing worked. She was too lost for too long. Still, he wasn't going to give up so easily. So, he played some horseshoes and rethought his approach. That's when he saw a newborn gator swimming in the enclosure. The egg had finally hatched. That was it. A great thought had just come to mind. He told the fellas he had seen the wild woman again, but they still didn't believe him. His doubling down had only convinced Escobar that it had been too long since he had gotten any action. So Floridaman started building a new southern wing to their base. That ought to convince them.
Listen, man, we all have fantasies. You don't have to build a room to convince me of a lie. I ain't lying, you'll see.
It was a cozy little hut with a nice bed and yellow blanket, a perfect place for a woman lost in the swamp. Surely it would be better than the mosquitoes and the mud. Later on, Floridaman was back out in the forest, tracking down his prey. And this time, he made sure none of the gators were following him. It didn't take long to find her.
Sorry about this.
He fired one shot from his rifle, and a dart thudded into her leg. Paleologa cried out, more out of surprise than pain. She spun around, disoriented. He thought she'd fall, but instead, she tore the dart free and charged. He jogged slowly ahead of her, trying to calm her. A minute later, she collapsed, and he scooped her up and muttered a joke to himself, just to break the tension.
You know, this would look real bad in literally any other context.
Only now, upon carrying an unconscious, naked woman into the base, did the others believe him. Escobar treated her wounds, tried to speak with her, but the sedated woman said nothing. Outside, the trio debated what to do next. Floridaman wanted to keep her safe at El Gatorado. Brett said they should send her off with the next trader, give her a chance to rejoin society. And Escobar? Well, he actually agreed with Brett. Floridaman argued that it was cruel, and she'd likely get sold into trafficking. He asked for a couple of days, just a while longer, to try to bring her to her senses. When Escobar pressed him as to why he cared so much about this stranger, Floridaman said she reminded him of his sister. His friend knew to leave it at that. He brought Paleologa into the room he made, and tried talking to her again, but now she wouldn't even look at him. He offered her some clothes. She didn't touch them. He gave her some food. She wouldn't eat. He told her to get some rest. She probably wouldn't sleep. With no other choice, he left her there for the night. He kept the door unlocked, but doubted she even knew how to open it. Nearby, the baby gator skittered after a water bug. Floridaman smiled and gently picked it up.
What should we call you? How about Chomps? Yeah, that's a good name.
He cradled the reptile in his hand and stroked its head. Then he quietly told it a story about his sister and the puppy she had once given that same exact name, back when life still felt normal. Thanks again for deciding to anchor here in this little corner of the internet. This is the second episode of what will likely be a 10-part series. If you enjoyed the video, then please give a like, share, or subscribe to the Harbor Master. Seriously, you don't want to make that guy angry. I'm also excited to announce that there's a new resident in the harbor. Meet Rambler Uno. He's a real man's man. He's a tradesman who proudly wears the scars of his hard work and is quite good with his hands. In real life, he has a scar over his right eye, so I decided to give him a bionic eye to represent that. And I gotta say, it looks badass. I could see him using that eye for exact measurements and things like that. I have him over here in the warehouse where he's building and crafting and just making the town better in general. And it's quite fitting that he's the first resident in the town. He's like a keystone helping build it into a better place. So a big shout out to Rambler for joining. Your support makes a huge difference, truly. If you'd like to become a resident yourself, consider joining the Patreon. On the highest tier, you get a custom character that'll show up here in every video. And I'm still adding other rewards too. You could work at this little fish shop. Or maybe you can sell black market goods on this sketchy dock. It's up to you. I'm hoping one day that this turns into a thriving settlement. Hell, maybe we can even make a series out of it. With all that being said, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.